Hello everyone and welcome back to the YellowDog 3D Tips blog. Today we're going to be having a look at what blend shapes are and how they work inside of Maya. So a blend shape is just basically a morph between one object and another. So blend shapes are used a lot in rigging, typically for faces and intricate details like that. And with blend shapes, what you've got to do is select the targets first and then select the base mesh afterwards. And what I mean by that is if I wanted this cube to morph into the cylinder, I would select the cylinder first, then shift select the cube and go to deform and blend shapes. So let's just see what happens if I try and do that. And as you can see straight away, that's given me an error. So I'm just going to open up the script editor to show you what that says, and it says the target cylinder does not match with the base. And we're getting that error because both objects have a different vertex count. So if we look at our heads-up display, we can see that the cylinder's got 42 vertexes, but the cube only has 8. And that just won't work. They've got to be the same amount of vertexes. So to further demonstrate this, I'll just create a sphere and I'll just duplicate it twice. But on this right sphere, I'm just going to change the shape of it a little bit. So I've just got the soft selection enabled and I've just pulled the top vertex down. So if I select this and then shift select the original sphere, you can see that there's no error message now, and under the inputs we've got this blend shape option, and we can just slide that slider up and it will give us a smooth deformation between the original and the deformed one. So as I said earlier, blend shapes are typically used a lot in facial rigging. So here I've got the same model duplicated a number of times, and I've just done a little bit of tweaking of the vertexes to make a closed upper lid and a closed lower lid on these far right hand models. So with these two selected, I'm going to select this second model in and add a blend shape. So that I added 2 at a time that time, and you can see under the blend shape node, under this second model in, you can see we've now got these sliders that will work on the lids. So if we do them both at the same time, you'll see we've got a nice eyelid animation, and as you've probably noticed, we've got an original base mesh on the far left, and this is typically the way that we would work when we're creating blend shapes on a rigged character. You wouldn't want to add all the blend shapes directly to the rigged character. It's best and least destructive to duplicate the rigged model and add all the blend shapes to this sort of proxy target and then create a link between both of them. So I hope that doesn't sound confusing, but what I'm going to do now is select the second one in and then the original one, which is the first one, and create a blend shape and then just turn the target way up. So now you can see when we tweak these sliders, we're going to get the same blend shape linked across the first two. And what we'd do is usually just hide the blend shapes, and then all of this sort of operation is going on behind the scene, and we can build controllers for these sliders instead of having to go into the attributes every time. So as you can see, we've got this nice blend shape, but a problem is happening, and that's that the eyelid is sort of intersecting with the eyeball, and that's because blend shapes only work in a linear way. You can't interpolate them, they only work in a straight line. So I'm just going to delete the blend shapes off this second target, and what we're going to do is create an in-between target. So basically, instead of it going from one target to another, we can tell it to go from one target to an in-between target, and then it reaches its final destination. So what I'm going to do is duplicate the base mesh and bring it over, and this is going to be our halfway target, and we're going to be doing the upper lid now. So I'm just going to give it a meaningful name and copy over this upper lid name, and I'm just going to call it upper lid mid target, just so it makes it less confusing to look at in the outliner. And what I'm going to do is select this upper lid first, and then select this new target and create a blend shape between these. And what I need to do is go into the blend shape weight under the inputs in the attribute editor and put it to 0.5 to a point where it's intersecting with the eyeball, and then we can just do a little bit of tweaking to the mesh. So I'm just going to select the edge. So I'm just going to select this top row of edges around the intersecting bit and drag them out so that they don't intersect with the eyeball anymore. So that looks nice and neat to me. So what we can do now, instead of adding the blend shapes behind the scenes, we can use the shape editor. And the shape editor is just a really great tool for managing the blend shapes. So if I go to Windows, Animation Editors and Shape Editor, you'll see that we've already got these 2 blend shapes, which are the ones we've just set up. So we can actually, in fact, I'm going to keep those in for now. I shouldn't have deleted them. That's just the blend shapes that we've just added to create this in between. But what we can do is I'm going to select this third blend shape, which is the upper lid, and I'm going to select the second target in, and I'm going to click Create Blend Shape within this shape editor window, and you can see we've got a nice slider here, like a nice graphical interface for sliding between these blend shapes. So if I wanted to add our halfway blend shape to this, I can select our halfway blend shape and select blend shape 4 in the shape editor, which is the one we've just added, and I can now right click this and click add selection as in between target. And you'll see there's a little weight at the bottom, and that's currently set to 0. So if I put that to 0.5, you'll see the little red line on the blend shape target above it has gone to the midpoint, which is telling us that at this midpoint it's going to reach a different target before it goes to the final target. So just to show you more clearly, I'll put that to 0.25, and you can see it's reaching the midpoint blend shape at a quarter of the way now, but I'll put that back to 0.5 where it should be, and as you can see we've got a nice eyelid animation there with no intersections. So I just think this window is a really nice way of managing your blend shapes, and you can add as many of these in between targets as you want to get a really refined deformation. So I've just opened the scene again from the starting point, and now I'm going to show you how we go about mirroring a blend shape over to the other side, so creating a opposite eyelid blink. So what I'm going to do is, you might think it's just as straightforward as, okay, I'll duplicate the left eyelid and I'll scale it in the X, so we've got the opposite side. So let's see what happens if I add this as a blend shape to this base mesh that I've just duplicated over. So if I go to deform and blend shape and move this slider, you'll see that the opposite eyelid actually moves, which you might think is really strange, and the reason for this is because blend shapes work off the vertex ID. So every vertex on a model in Maya has its own individual ID. So if we go into the component editor, you can see all these vertexes that make up this head mesh. So just scaling something or moving it or anything like that is just never going to work because it works off the ID. So now I'm going to show you how we do this properly. So I'm going to duplicate our base mesh, and I'm going to call this one flipped head 01, and I'm going to duplicate this again and call the second one wrapped head 01. And what we need to do is make sure these are in the same position, and I'm going to get the flipped head, and just like we did before, I'm going to scale it in the -x, so it's -1x, and I'm going to add this lower lid as a blend shape to the flipped head. So if we go to deform and blend shape, we can see we've got this blend shape here, but we've got to leave it at 0 for now. So this is quite a confusing process, but it will all make sense in the end. So what I'm going to do is just delete these eye geometries out of the mesh, because these will mess up the next stage. And I'm going to select the wrap head and then the flipped head. I'm going to go to deform and wrap deformer, and a wrap deformer is basically a way you can match the vertex positions of two models that are laid on top of each other. So now if I move this blend shape on the flip head and show you the wrapped head, you can see that the vertex on these have been dragged along by the flipped head vertices. So now I can delete the history on this model, and I can delete the flipped head and the base that comes with that, and now we've got a perfectly mirrored blend shape without having to scale it in the X. So if I select both of these lower lids and add them as a target to the second mesh in, so if I go to deform and blend shape now, you'll see that if I select this mesh, go to the blend shape node and move both of these sliders, you'll see that we're getting a nice mirrored blend shape animation. So I'm just going to delete the eyeballs just to show you more clearly what's happening. And as you can see, the deformation's happening as you would expect, and we've got a nice mirrored blend shape now. So I hope all of that's made sense, and I hope you've learnt something. Thank you once again for watching, and stay tuned for more 3D tips. Cheers!